everybody. Today, Hani is going to continue reading Wonka, inspired by Roald Dahl's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Chapter 26. Oompa Loompa in an Elevator. The priest sat huddled in the confessional, polishing off the last of the chocolate, muttering guiltily to himself. "You must pull yourself together," he whispered. "Honestly, stop worrying about this way minor misdeeds. It's not like anyone is going to appear and punish you. It's just chocolate." "Correction," came a howl, and the priest looked down to where the noise had come from, right next to the shores. "It's my chocolate," said Oompa Loompa said. "Imagine my surprise when I followed the smell and it led me to you. Eating my chocolate." The priest immediately fainted, and the empty jar dropped into the Oompa Loompa's arms. His face grew very serious indeed. "You steal from me, Oompa Loompa. We take back 1,000-fold," he bellowed, and he stopped and sniffed the air. Chocolate, lots of it. He sniffed again. Underground, the perfect compensation. He spotted the little lever next to the priest and pulled it down. Much of his surprise, the confessional box began to move. When the elevator door opened in the crypt, the Oompa Loompa pulled a string by his side, and a pair of mechanical wings informed his jacket. He took off, soaring through the vault, following his nose all the way to the chocolate tank. He hovered at the small porthole window and watched the churning chocolate. And then something shocking caught his eye. A familiar top hat soaring in the mixture. He darted to the wall of the valves and controls where he spotted a lever marked emergency drains. He pulled it. And immediately the tank started guggling and bubbling, and much to the Oompa Loompa's delight, the blades stopped churning and the level began to fall. The Oompa Loompa bit his nails, wincing as he waited to see what would be left of Willy at the end of it. Inch by inch, when the elevator door opened in the crypt, the Oompa Loompa pulled a string by his side, and a pair of mechanical wings unfurled from his jacket. He took off, soaring through the vault, following his nose all the way to the chocolate tank. He hovered at a small portal window and watched the churning chocolate. But then something shocking caught his eye, a familiar top hat soaring in the mixture. He gasped when he realized, and in a quick flash, he darted to the wall of valves and controls where he spotted a lever marked emergency drains. He pulled it, and immediately the tank started bulging and bubbling, much to Oompa Loompa's delight. The blades stopped churning and the level began to fall. The Oompa Loompa bit his nails, wincing as he waited to see what would be left of Willy at the end of it. Inch by inch, the chocolate slopped out of the tank. It was so quiet, so still, so lifeless down there. Then suddenly Willy and Noodle broke the surface, coughing and spurring and taking enormous gulps of air. "We're alive!" Noodle cried with joy, giving Willy a hug before shaking some chocolate over here. Willy could hardly believe it. He was so happy and began doing somersaults, soaring around and round in the vortex of chocolates as it drained from the tank. Soon it was almost empty, and only some chocolate puddles remaining at the bottom. "We've been saved!" Noodle said, splashing happily in that little chocolate remained. "Who saved us?" Willy glanced up and spotted a small figure hovering by the window. "Aha!" he said, giving a friend with a grateful nod. "It was the little orange man with the green hair, Noodle." "I'm serious, Willy," Noodle said. "So am I," Willy said. "He's right there." But then Noodle looked up, and the Oompa Loompa was gone. Chapter 27. The Empty Jar. The cartel emerged from the cathedral just as the chaff lumbered around the corner, accompanied by Apple and a couple of existing officers. Eating 1,800 boxes of chocolate had really taken its toll. His face was gray and smeared with chocolate. His eyes were as heavy-looking as his stride. He puffed to a halt and cried, "Gentlemen, thank goodness you're all right. I came as fast as I could. A robber, you say? Don't you worry, Chef. Everything's under control. Couple of thieves broke in, but I'm afraid they met a little accident," Sogworth said grimly. "In which they died," Prodnoise clarified. The colonel laughed. "That's a big joke," came a voice, and they all turned in horror to see Willie standing in the casserole stuffed with noodle, dripping in the chocolate match, very much alive. "Wonka!" Slugworth bellowed. "You should be dead." He stopped when he saw it was Noodle's hand, and he started to tremble. "Officer," Willie said, calling an officer a fable, "would you kindly take a look at this?" Noodle handed him the green ledger. "It details every single illegal payment this man has ever made," Noodle explained, flashing the colonel a satisfied smile. "1,000 of them." Behind them, the priest sighed out of sight. "Don't listen to her, Affable," the chef cried. "She's lying." "Well, of course she is," Sogworth spat. Officer Affable opened the ledger, his eyes grew wide as he lifted through the pages. "She's not, sir," he said. "She's absolutely right. It's incredible." Sweat began to form in the chef's brow. He went for a different approach. "Oh, well, then it sounds like a case for the chief of police. Give it to me, Affable. I'll take it from here." But the chef grabbed the ledger. Officer Affable held on tightly. "I can't let you have it, I'm afraid, sir," he said. "And why is that?" Chef asked as he glanced earnestly at Slugworth. "Your name's in here too, Chef," Officer Affable said. "A lot." The chef dropped to his knees. "Curse my sweet tooth," he squealed. It was as good as confusion as any, and with a nod from Officer Affable, the other officials moved to arrest the colonel and the chief. "All right, I'll confess. I'm weak. I'll flip," the chef wailed. "I'll name names. I mean, you know their names, but I'll name them anyway. All I ask is just a little bit of chocolate." "Gentlemen," Sogworth said, sensing the game was up, "run!" They shot off through the square, but before they could go far, something incredible happened. Their feet lifted off the ground and they soared up into the sky. "You didn't eat any of the chocolate, did you, Mr. Slugworth?" Willie called up to them as they rose higher and higher. Slugworth bared his teeth in fury. "Why?" "Because they're hover chokes," Willie shouted. "My new delayed action version. And extra strong. At this speed you're going, I'd say the three of you ate a lot." Sogworth grasped hold of a jar of frozen water sticking out of the fountain, and Fickle Grover grabbed Sogworth's shoe and Prodnoise grabbed Fickle Grover's ankle. There they were, the formidable chocolate colonel, a little string of criminal bunting in the sky. "You think you're so clever, don't you?" Sogworth shouted down to Willie. "Well, there's a billion sovereigns of chocolate beneath our feet. We'll get the best lawyers, bribe your judge, rig the jury if you have to. You'll be fine." "I wish I thought of that," Willie said, a hint of smile breaking on his face. "Noodle?" Noodle gave a nod and clenched a wrench against the higher Friday. It was final part of the plan, and they had all begun looking forward to. Deep below, huddled among the seated pipebirds, the others heard their signal. "Now!" Piper cried, and together she, Abacus, Melody, and Larry began unscrewing the bolts of the pipes. "What are you doing, Wonka?" Sogworth shouted down, her voice sparked with suspicion. "Why did you climb the fire hydrant?" Noodle just smiled sweetly up at him as the ground beneath their feet began to quake. Tiles slipped from the rooftops, melons rolled off the food court, and everyone in the square stopped and looked down. The icicles of the fountain's shells began to creak and crack. Sogworth's hands slipped slightly as he tried to cling tighter on his icicle. Then suddenly there came a sound of rushing water, and the fountain burst into life. Only it wasn't water. It's chocolate, Slugger screamed. Ronald gasped. Our chocolate! We're ruined, Pickle Grover cried. Immediately, the icicles Slugworth was holding stepped into, and the chocolate floor lit up and away. Ruined, Willie called to them. I don't know. To me, it looks like you're going to up in the world, by which he means you're physically going up. Slugworth clarified. Financially? Oh, shut up, proud boy, Slugworth shouted. You're an idiot, Pickle Grover added. Well, at least I'm not sick every time someone mentioned the poor, proudness scoffed, and they began grabbing at each other, kicking and throwing punches as they drifted higher and higher into the sky, but only Willie was watching them. Everyone else was fixated on the chocolate. Some were licking their walls, others were diving into the fountain. Don't worry, gentlemen, Willie called up to them. You'll come down eventually, I think. Until then, you need to figure out what to do with this chocolate. He dipped his finger into the fountain and gave it a taste. He shuddered. Now, give some any good chocolate should be simple, plain, uncomplicated. He began pulling bottles out of his pocket and poking them into the fountain. But I like a little complication, elaboration, and innovation. In short, Wonkification. Suddenly, the chocolate in the fountain began to bubble and turn a glorious shade of purple. Ladies and gentlemen, Will said grandly, your friends and I invite to enjoy our chocolate. The workers rushed to its side, and together they watched as the curdle grew smaller and smaller into the sky. A squabbling mess of men rising up and on before disappearing from sight. Chapter 28. Arrest Them. Back at the wash house, Mrs. Garvey was organizing bundles of money to files and online building. Oh, nice old house in that country, she said, tapping a pile, massive barrel of warm water, fancy new pants. But she was interrupted by Bleacher, who burst and bolted the door tightly behind them. It's the cartel, he hissed. They've gone down. Mrs. Garvin rose quickly to her feet. Well, we didn't do nothing except poison all this chocolate. There was a knock at the door. Police, came a shout, followed by more knocking. Queen Mrs. Garvey cried, Eat the evidence. Police! Just a second, officer, Mrs. Garvey cried. I'm on the toilet. He grabbed a tray of sharing bottles they had stolen from Willie and began gulping down the remaining inside of them. Almost done, officer, Mrs. Garvey shouted. Oh no. Still more toilet to go. Scrub it, Bleacher, open up, or we'll knock the door down. They did knock it down. Then the poor arresting officers burst in. They found not so much two criminals, but instead of two massive mounds of hair with eyes. Mrs. Garvey had long blue hair and an uncle with a matching blue beard, and Bleacher had green hair, which he pulled back of his swollen face to reveal some yellow spotted skin. It took a while, but the officials eventually found their arms and put them in handcuffs. At this song, Mrs. Garvey struggled free and loose. One last kiss, my lord, before we are forever we forever parted. Oh, puppy wuff, Bleacher said, and they kissed. One final slobbery, warming kiss. Chapter 29. Dreams and Promises. Willie sat on the steps of the cathedral, watching the whole city enjoy the rich chocolate from down the fountain. He felt a warmth wrapping around him. It was a feeling that he hadn't felt since he was a small boy on a small boat. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his old birthday bar of chocolate. Finally, it was time. He took a deep breath and peeled back the wrapper. But much to his surprise, there came a brilliant flash of gold. Willie's heart stood still. Slowly, he removed the rest of the wrapper and held the gold paper up to the light. There was a faint message on it, a message that now, thanks to Nono, he could read. The secret is, it's not the chocolate that matters. It's the people you share it with. Love, Mama. Willie traced her words with his finger, tears reddening his cheeks. He could feel eyes on him, like she was there. He looked up hopefully, and there she was, standing on the car, looking back at him. You kept your word, he whispered. You're here, Mama. She smiled proudly at him and then gestured at the chocolate in his hand. Willie raised them into the air with a lump of his rum in his throat. History would be the last chocolate of hers that would ever eat, and as the tears fell, he snapped up the corner and popped it in his mouth. His mother clasped her hands with joy, just as she had done on every birthday, every time they shared chocolate together before. He wanted to cry out, to grab hold of her and keep her forever, but he knew he couldn't. As the chocolate melted in his mouth, she began to fade, softer and softer, fainter and fainter, and then she was gone. But she would never truly be gone, not really. He knew that now. Noodle came skipping towards him, and Willie wiped his tears and broke off a piece of chocolate for her. As she chewed on it, a look of pure joy spread across her face. One by one, the rest of the washhouse workers joined them. As he handed them each a piece of chocolate, they ate the whole bar together, all of them like one big family. It was just as he had dreamed. No, it was even better than that. This is the really best chocolate, Noodle said. Willie smiled at the empty wrapper in his hand. I wish it could last forever. The cathedral bells chimed. I guess it's time, Willie said. Time for what? Willie asked. What's going on? The other workers began grinning and nudging to each other excitedly. Do you know how many people called these live in the city, Noodle? Willie asked. 106, Abacus answered. We checked the phone book. But luckily, you have a friend who works at the telephone exchange and she spent the whole afternoon ringing around. And guess what? We found her, Lottie squeaked. Noodle froze in shock. You found my mom? You found Dorothy Smith? None of us felt right to go home until you had a home too, Abacus said. Willie held out his arm. Come on, Noodle. I think you're going to like where you're going. Chapter 30, Jet. The library? Noodle gasped. My mom works at the library and lives here too, Willie said, in the house of imagination. Isn't it wonderful? It's just like you dreamed, a beautiful old building full of books. The place was very grand, with windows that shone with welcoming light, and it was tall too. It needed to be, because inside it housed more characters, more cities, and more creatures than ever Willie had met on his travels. And through many thought of its quiet place, really, there was nowhere in the world more full of life and loudness. Noodle opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. On the steps stood a woman waiting patiently, like she was been waiting there forever. She was tall like the library itself, and sunbeams bounced off the snow beneath her feet, lifting off her like an angel. Off you go now, Willie said, and gently nudged her toward the steps. Noodle climbed the stairs, slowly at first, and then faster and faster. Willie watched with joy as Noodle's mother poured her into a hug that looked like it would never end. Noodle peeked out at Willie's mouth. Thank you. He smiled and gathered his cane. It was time to go. But just as he turned to leave, words made him stop dead in his tracks. So goes a good deed in the weary world. Willie looked down to see Oompa Loompa at his feet. I wondered if I'd see you again, Willie said. Thank you for saving my life in the boat. He rummaged around in his case and produced a fresh jar of chocolate. I suppose that concludes our business, the Oompa Loompa said, grabbing them. I shall now return to my beloved Oompa Land. Well, the cacao beans growing in disappointingly small numbers and my friends took down on me. I thought you called them lofty, Willie said. The Oompa Loompa shifted awkwardly. As a matter of fact, I'm a quarter-inch below average. They call me Shirley Pen. Still, good day, sir. Willie frowned. Oh, it's a shame you have to go. The Oompa Loompa turned and began marching off. I said, good day. I'm going to share my chocolate with the world. I need more than a shop. I need a factory. Well, good luck with that, Oompa Loompa said, and someone to head off the testing department. The Oompa Loompa ground to a halt and slipped on his heel to face Willie. I suppose I don't have to rush back, he said. Tell me more of the factory. Well, for starters, it looked to be big, Willie said as the pair worked off the road together. And it must have a chocolate river. Epilogue, Wonka. Noodle was so happy in her new home in the library with a kind-hearted mother and a never-ending reading pile. Though it had only been months, she felt as she had been there her whole life. The horrible years as Korean and Bleach had already begun to fade, worn thin in her memory by every warm hug from her mother. Life had become predictable and ordinary and truly wonderful. Their friend Willie and Mr. C disappeared, but no one knew where he gone, and everyone missed his chocolate. But one night, after she slipped the bookmark into a book and went to the bathroom to brush her teeth, she found a note tacked to the thing. Dear Noodle, I once promised you a life-size supply of chocolate, and William always keeps his word. In our house you've got hot and cold running water, of course. But I changed it. But you now have hot and chocolate, my chocolate. She twisted the tap and guessed as rich melted chocolate gushed out of it. Whenever you drink it, I hope you think of me. I know you'll be thinking of you. Your friend Willy Wonka. P.S. If you ever need to get in touch, simply ask a little orange man with the green hair. Little orange man with the green hair, she said with a thought, and then she spotted something on the floor. She crunched down, her hands tracing impossible outline of tiny footprints, she cried. Quickly she followed them back into her bedroom, around the drawers, back to the bookcase, under the bed, all the way to the window, where a very small man was standing on the ledge, the orange man with green hair. She stood frozen in shock before giving a small, shy wave. She offered her slight nod and formal acknowledgement in return. She couldn't believe it. He was real all along. Then quite suddenly he burst to life, pulling string as he sat. There was a clunk and mechanical wings in front from his jacket, and it jumped right out the window. Noodle watched over and watched with utter joy as the Oompa Loompa dipped below, skimming the cobbles, and swooped up and loared up into the night. He flew past the silhouette of the factory. As he glided over, the sign of the roof burst to life in light. Just one word, more delicious than moonlight. Wonka. Thank you for hearing all my story. Honey will be back with another book. Bye-bye.